Hello, insiders, and welcome to this new episode of the EU Bubble Insider. Today we speak with Alessandra Cardaci, who is lead partnership manager at Debating Europe. Alessandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
And I'm happy to have you as a guest today. And maybe to start, for those who may not know, could you give us a little bit of background about your role and also what Debating Europe is and what you guys do?
Absolutely. So, as you said, my name is Alessandra and I work at Debating Europe, which is a unit of a Brussels-based think tank called Friends of Europe. So it's always a little bit complicated to explain, but basically Friends of Europe is one of the oldest and most established think tank in Brussels. We are an independent think tank for forward-looking, sustainable and more inclusive Europe. And it's kind of a special think tank, I like to say, because usually think tank very much connect academia, research, policy. But what we do actually at Friends of You is to connect also the private sector and civil society and citizens to bringing together all these different actors and let them exchange and reflect on how we can shape EU policy making for the better. And I find it super valuable to have indeed different perspectives, because sometimes in the EU bubble you have a lot of high level discussions with super top experts, but at the end of the day we're all here to do policies and things that affect people's daily lives. And so it's so important to engage with citizens. And that's exactly what we do at Debating Europe within the think tank. So we have a toolkit that helps us to engage with real citizens out there from all over Europe to hear their perspectives on many things that go from climate change to digitalization to security, very important nowadays. And so in a nutshell, that's where I work, and what I do in particular is to basically, on top of many things like project management, implementation, I very much focus on partnerships, and especially with the aim to bring as diverse and as many citizens as possible in our activities, to have a real sense of reality on their perspectives on the ground, on the many things we discuss in Brussels.
So please allow me to challenge this a little bit, because actually talking to the citizen is the holy grail of Brussels, which everyone is saying that they're trying to do. What do you know about talking to citizens that others don't? What do you think you're doing that is better, that is allowing citizens actually to have a voice in the debate?
That's an excellent question, and I take the challenge. And after all, I work at Debating Europe, so I love to debate. So I think there are a couple of things that I'd like to mention. First of all, as I said before, the fact that our think tank as an in-house unit means that it's eager to invest on citizen engagement per se. So I see a lot of organizations doing citizen engagement either as their specific business. For example, think about the Conference on the Future of Europe, where we had companies, organizations that are specialized, for example, in citizens' assemblies, which is a very specific way of letting citizens participate in democracy, and that's their business. We're not in that business because we do not organize citizens' assemblies from A to Z, for example, but we are in a space where I really appreciate the fact that our think tank, as I said, has managed to create this in-house unit that has ad hoc resources that go from project management, communication, because of course communication is key to be able to engage with citizens meaningful and in an accessible way, and strategy and so on. And so it's about investing the resources for citizen engagement as a specific, if you like, vertical of an organization, rather than something that ticks a box because from time to time you invite a young student talking to an event. And the way we do it, which is, if you like, our unique way we like to think, is via a series of different activities that go from using, for example, focus group methodology, which is a research methodology that is historically used in marketing. You want to test a product, I don't know, a new lipstick, let's say, and you invite a series of people testing the lipstick and saying what they think. Of course, we don't do that for products, but we do that for political ideas. And so we are very careful about the language we use to sound catchy, but also have a language that make our participants eager to participate because they feel safe to voice what they think. It's a welcoming space. We try to be as independent, politically independent as possible. Of course, it's a journey. It's not perfect yet. Historically, we have mostly engaged with citizens in English, which is, of course, a barrier. And as of this year, we've started to engage with citizens in many local languages in parallel on different issues, working with local facilitators who know their audiences much better than us in Brussels, and that is helping massively. We cooperate with a lot of what we call community partners, so civil society organizations that represent certain communities that help us reach out to their communities. So we have a different, let's say, ways we manage to engage citizens in the job, in the work we do. Again, as I said, it's a journey. It's still true that we still don't manage to get to the least exposed person in the street about EU affairs, meaning that it's true that originally, historically, most of the citizens that firstly came to our activities are already citizens that are already eager to talk about these things, either because they work in the sphere or they study these subjects. But I see already with this the shift to local languages, the big difference in the way we manage to reach out to even less exposed citizens, but they still have something to say. And what I can tell you, and I will stop because I'm really taking a lot of time for this very important question, is that citizens are so eager to speak up, to have a say, to have space where they can actually voice their concerns, their ideas for solutions, to exchange with other people in a meaningful way that it's not on social media. And that's exactly what we offer. Then it's our duty to make best use of this data that we collect and use them to influence the work of the think tank and of EU policy making, in a way, influencing with the citizens' perspective. So, but it's a challenge, yes, I agree.
I very much agree with what you said about communicating with citizens in their local languages. I think this is one of the most undervalued parts of the dialogue with the citizens, because obviously English is the working language of Brussels by now, and we're all happy that we have one language we can communicate in here in this professional space. But then people in Poland, people in Portugal, people in Romania, they speak their local languages, and not everyone speaks English. Some people speak 2 languages or 3, but none of them is English. So you really have to, if you want, for example, have a debate you would like to promote, then the least you can do is add subtitles or something like that. So I think this is a very good point. Now, you said that you mentioned that your role is quite diverse. You mentioned partnerships, project management. This podcast, part of the goal of this podcast is to understand the specifics of the work that people do in the EU bubble. So maybe you could walk us through through an example project that you have recently worked on, explaining what it exactly is that you do, how you approach planning, execution, maybe evaluation of results on something that is a specific project.
Absolutely. So I'll mention 2 projects that I'm pretty proud of, and I think give a good idea of what we do concretely, because on top of a lot of nice words and stuff, there is a reality of delivering projects and results. One is a project that we did last year in partnership with the European Investment Bank, where we involve 100 young Europeans and African citizens as well, because I didn't mention that Friends of Europe is also part of the Africa Europe Foundation, which means that we also have this sort of direct link with the African continent for a new narrative about the relations between these 2 continents, by the way, a more peer-to-peer and constructive narrative about the global challenges both continents face. And in the foundation, we also very much pay attention to young people and the young generation of Africans. And in a way, Debating Europe does the same, because I didn't mention that it's true that we involve citizens at large, but historically we've always put a lot of attention on young people for many reasons. And so we involve 100 young Europeans and young Africans, and we basically asked them, what do you see as the biggest threats in terms of global threats, and how would you expect institutions, including international institutions like European Investment Bank, to do? And it was very fascinating to see how young both Africans and Europeans replied, of course, climate change and so on. But for example, young Africans, on top of climate change, they obviously mentioned things that young Europeans on average didn't mention, like food security or health issues, not to mention like corruption on how then international funding is spent in the African continent. And the reason why I'm giving some data, but basically it's really fascinating to have the opportunity to speak to real people on the ground. And then the idea is for the European Investment Bank to make use of these recommendations, basically, these observations that come from the young people that we involved. And then, if you like, the peak of the project was the participation of some of these young people in COP27 last year at a dedicated session with the European Investment Bank, where these young people also felt very much empowered, because it was not just about involving them in a series of online conversations and that's it, and then goodbye. It was actually also bringing them in the spotlight to have a challenging but so important conversation with leaders during COP, which is a very important high-level political event, especially on some of the issues that they mentioned, which is indeed climate change and so on. So this is an example of a project that we ran, and of course it's not. It was a specific project, but it's part of a long-lasting cooperation between us in Europe, the Friends of Europe side, the Debating Europe side, and our partners in the Africa Europe Foundation. So it's just the beginning of a series of potential cooperation together around, again, bringing perspective from both continents that want to shape policymaking. And then the last thing that I want to mention is a project that we are still working on, which is called 2024 Voices, Citizens Speak Up, which is it's a pilot project, because we've never done it such a massive project like this before. And it's about involving citizens from 7 EU countries, so Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, and Sweden. So you can see we try to cover a little bit the geographical diversity of Europe. It's about 2024 citizens, because 2024 is the year of the election. So we look at the election, and we basically ask them, all of them, questions in the local languages on key issues nowadays. So on the economy, how the economy works and delivers, on the role of technology, on the role of democratic institution nowadays, why people are so upset about the state of democracy and politicians, climate change, security. And so the idea is that we, again, consulted citizens in focus group, via surveys at the local level, but on the same issues. And at the beginning of next year, we will publish a report, which will be a comparative analysis on the different topics across the different countries. And what's very interesting on top of that is the intergenerational dimension that will come up, because we managed to involve not only young people this time, but also older generations. So it's going to be very interesting to see how different generations across Europe reply. And the idea is to, again, produce data that come from citizens that are going to be the basis of a series of debates, again at the local level, as you said before, very important, but also in Brussels, where we will bring some of these citizens again with local or national or European policymakers to debate around specific issues that came up during the conversation with citizens, with the aim to basically produce policy recommendations to influence the sort of mood of European elections, hopefully, but mostly the incoming EU leadership with these policy recommendations that are coming from our work on the ground. And again, this is a long-term journey, because it's part of a bigger mission of the think tank we're part of, which is to contribute to renew the social contract, so to rethink the way we live in society in different policy areas, and produce a series of actionable recommendations to change society for the better and respond to the huge challenges that we have. I know it's a lot of big terms, but it's difficult to summarize such a complex project.
So, given that your job seems to be a very fascinating one, working on projects that have a real world value, looking for the perspective from the perspective of someone who's just launching their career and trying to understand the path that you have led you to this job. Could you reflect on some key turning points? Like, what are the right decisions one has to take to end up working in a place like you do today in the EU bubble?
Yeah, it's a very, I hope, useful question with, I hope, a useful answer. So the idea is that I originally decided to study international relations and politics, not because I was particularly passionate about politics per se, to be very honest, after high school, but because I really liked different kind of subjects. I liked history, I liked sociology, I liked law. So I wanted to find something that allowed me to explore different kind of subject in the social science sort of realm, of course. And I love traveling. I loved Europe. As a kid, I always traveled around Europe with my family, I had that privilege. And I truly believed in the European project, in the idea behind it. And that's basically the original sort of start of my journey in the European sphere. I don't like to call it bubble, because the reason why I do the job I do is really to break the bubble with a sense of reality coming from the citizens. And then after that, I did a Master in European Affairs abroad, which was very helpful because, of course, if you want to pursue an international career, it makes sense to start from an early stage already through your studies to study abroad and have this international mindset, which is so important, because I think that what makes the EU bubble different, for example, when you do project management than other spheres, is the multicultural, multinational context you are in, and you have to be very emotionally and socially intelligent. I'm not saying that I am, but you need to develop that intelligence to navigate well. And then I guess my turning point has been the fact that I wrote a thesis about public opinion and European integration. And I started to realize that what I love about Europe was its people, its citizens, and how public opinion is formed, which is also, in line with my political science studies. And I, for a series of coincidences, started my career in the Commission. So immediately after my master degree, I went into the European Commission, and in a ways that was super cool, because it was like the dream job you want to have, and you already have it at 24. I was a stagiaire, just to be clear. I didn't pass the concours at 24. But on the other hand, it's also too soon, because it's a public administration, which is obviously, as any other public administration, be slow, very hierarchical, and I'm not sure that's always what you want to do at the early stage of your career, where you maybe want to, start your career in a smaller organization where you have more responsibilities, more dynamism. And that's basically what I ended up doing. So I decided to quit the Commission and go into the not-for-profit sector in Brussels. I would say for two reasons. One was because I decided for the not-for-profit over the private sector, because I really am a strong advocate for common good, for public good for common good, in a way. So I wanted to still stay in the sort of public sphere over the for-profit private sector. And the second reason was that back then I was still, in the early stage of my career, and exactly as I said before, I felt that it was great to work in the Commission, but it was maybe too soon, and I needed to hit reality, if you like, of the professional world in the EU affairs. And again, the sort of public opinion, citizens, came organically from the fact that while I was in the Commission with a colleague of mine, and thanks to the support of, back then, our head of unit, who was very visionary, who still is very visionary, we managed to implement a process to consult young people on how to better implement EU funding in their interest, horizontally across different areas. And that sort of, for me, was maybe a turning point of understanding the value of engaging people, really, and of co-creative spaces, and instead of just having a very top-down way of doing policy making, but more horizontal and cooperative. And then I saw this vacancy, applied, and I got the job. And in the meantime, the conference on the future of Europe happened, which was a big turning point in terms of EU leadership, acknowledging the importance of citizens' participation and rethinking democracy. And that's a little bit how things happen. And probably there are many other things that I forgot to say, but that's what comes to my mind first. I hope it was clear.
Given that you not like the bubble being the bubble, let's say you would have the chance to change one thing that would be sort of a game-changing, long-lasting change that you could just pick of any caliber to make the EU bubble, the Brussels bubble better, what would that be in your case? What would you choose to change?
I would choose to change the recruitment system of EU institutions. I think the EU institutions recruit people based on very dry criteria, like the whole EPSO concours, verbal reasoning and so on. And I'm not sure that should be the main criteria to select civil servants. I used to be a civil servant, and I think it's a wonderful job that you should feel honored to have, because you're actually serving people in a way. And I would love to, and I know there are many amazing civil servants in the institution. I got the opportunity to work with them, but sometimes their potential, in my opinion, is not really tapped into, because the way the institution works is sometimes a little bit dry, and the way people are recruited is a little bit dry, in the sense that surely competencies, intelligence, and reasoning skills are super important, but I don't think it's the only thing that is important. I think motivation is important. I think that you need to be competent, but also to care about the idea. And I think it's so important to go back to values. I mean, we hear a lot of in von der Leyen speeches about values, and nowadays we have a lot of conflicts that are happening also because of values around the world. So, but where are these values when talking about our own staff and motives, to work in the institutions? And I think it's really important to motivate people, not only based on good conditions or things like that, but actually care and get them excited about their job, because you see that one person, one good civil servant can change so much, because he or she or they are so motivated to do their job properly in the interest of public good in Europe and citizens, and setting up initiatives and things like that. And I think we can all benefit from more passionate and caring civil servants in EU institutions. I think that then the selection system should correspond accordingly. So
I think that's a very good.
To change
I think that's a very good point, and I could only add that the way I see it is that the way European institutions are staffed doesn't reflect how the European society is built, and that's just one of the major problems that I see. But again, going back to talking to the citizen, I will do it in brackets, because we're all citizens, and even MEPs are citizens as well. But talking to citizens who are not part of the EU bubble, you had a number of different experiences already in different positions, different organizations. I'm wondering how that has shaped your understanding and your approach to EU affairs. And I would like to frame that question in a way that you say how you explain what EU affairs are to friends and family back home. Like when you meet people who are not from this industry, and so what is this there you actually guys do? How do you see what EU affairs actually are right now?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, I used to work in the regional development, let's say, department, which was all about connecting Brussels EU with the regional local realities, which is super challenging. So what I got to learn through my different experiences, as you said, is a multiple of is many things. But basically, let's start with language, of course. I mean, this is not going to come as a surprise to any of our listeners or watchers, but it really matters the way you talk to people in a accessible, easy, catchy way. So, for example, you want to talk about the Green Deal, don't mention the Green Deal. Just say, would you be ready to give up meat? Would you be ready to give up your car? So things that they can understand. And then you basically hook them with that question. And then slowly you start talking about what are your expectations from the different actors? What do you understand of the European Union? So basically not assuming things, but actually prompting people to share what they know, what they feel, and then react to that step by step with different pieces of information or exchanges. And what it's really beautiful for example, in our focus groups, is that we have a diverse group of people. So sometimes they talk to each other. So it's not me coming from Brussels and now giving you a lecture about EU institutions, but it's me obviously starting a conversation with easy to understand and to relate questions, and then let them share what they think, what they know, and then you always have someone in the room who is able to explain in very simple terms what the EU is doing to solve certain issues. And the fact that it's someone like your peer who is doing that, you're actually much more eager to listen to this person, and your mindset and your intelligence is more open to then receive the information, because it's not top-down Brussels telling you these things. So that's a way to sort of tackle the issue of how to explain EU affairs to people, but also get them interested and engaged. And what I love about my job, and I think we lack so much in the bubble, is again this sense of reality. So I sometimes I go to a lot of high-level events and I hear people talking about electric cars or things like that. And then we have people in our focus groups telling us, look, it's not that I'm against electric cars, but first of all, why do we still talking about cars per se? Why can't we rethink mobility as a whole? And second thing, I cannot afford buying an electric car, and even if I did, I don't have an electric car station in my city. So it's like this sort of hidden reality. And in fact, what we do at Friends of Europe, and we will do actually more and more as of next year, so stay tuned, is to really bring these reality hits sort of prompts that come from citizens to EU policymakers. So what we do is very tiny in the huge space of the EU bubble, of course. So it's not that we are going to revolutionize a citizen's perception about Europe by ourselves, but we are trying to, and it's a lot about communication as well. We are now focusing more and more. It's a journey, so we haven't, we're not at the perfect point yet at all, but we are starting to also see how to engage citizens via social media with catchy videos, interviews, podcasts. So we're trying to experiment different tools as well to engage people with, and also engaging with, certain personalities from the music industry or other industries, so or leaders in the field that can be the ambassadors of the messenger. So not just the Brussels bureaucracy or machine sort of coming to you as a citizen. So I think that's a little bit the point. And what I see sometimes in the institutions that there is a lot of path dependency. So because you used to produce fact sheets for citizens, you continue to do fact sheets for citizens. But citizens don't care about fact sheets. So it's really important, I think, to also build meaningful partnership, which is also what we do. We don't go and speak to certain communities directly. We ask for civil society organizations who work with these communities to help us engage in them and find ways to make them feel heard and welcome in our spaces. So it's a very complex, very, very complex job. But it's, for me, it's essential. We cannot complain about the next European Parliament election results if we don't put efforts, money, energy in regaining citizens' trust. And that comes through a lot of things I said and many other things that I don't have the time to say right now, but yeah.
Talking about elections and also local engagement, there is one more initiative I would like to speak with you about. You're part of the Restless Brussels initiative. To those who don't know, but still who live in Brussels and have a long list of complaints, tell us what it is. What is Restless Brussels and how can you help?
Yes, so aside from my job, I'm also a board member of Restless Brussels with a bunch of very motivated young non-Belgian Brusselsers, I like to say. So the aim of Restless Brussels is to really bring the international community living in Brussels closer to the city. I think all of us living in Brussels hear a lot of people, internationals, complaining about the city, not only the weather, but like transport, garbage system, and we share that. We understand it's not the best city to live in, but we also believe that it's our duty as an international community to, first of all, learn how the city we live in and we are part of and we contribute to works, and come together and reflect on ways we can all contribute to the changes that we need. And so basically, as Restless Brussels, we organize a different kind of events, from small to bigger, formal, informal, even dinners, to bring people together. Whoever wants to participate is welcome to, and discuss about a specific topic. Recently, we've discussed a lot about mobility, but also the garbage problem, but also poverty, gentrification, even heritage. It's very open to any kind of topic that the community, the international community, feels important to discuss and exchange with other fellow internationals in the city. And exchange with people who are also in charge of some of these issues. So we have managed to bring, local councillor, mayors, regional ministers already, and it's quite impressive for me because we started only in May this year. I'm already in 2024. In May 2023, and we have organized a series of events where again we brought together international who were really eager to better understand how the city works, or even bring in some other international who are already very local activists in certain fields, so advocating for more cycle lanes and more like bike-friendly city, and who can inspire others to do the same in their neighborhood, because we all know that Brussels is very much divided into different communes. And so basically the ultimate aim is to bring people together, let them understand that they have a role to play, but also exchange with those they should be exchanged with to voice their concern about the city. And we're very much going to focus next year on raising awareness among the international community that they have the right, especially EU citizens, they have the right to vote in the next municipal elections happening in October 2024, which is the first way in democracy to, make an impact in the way you want things to change. And again, it's really about building a better and more constructive connection between the international community and the local community in Brussels, which is insane that no one has ever done that before. Yeah.
So to be very clear, who has the right to vote in the local elections? How long do you have to be in Brussels? What are the conditions for non-Belgian Brussels citizens to take part in the elections?
So if you are a European Union citizen registered in one of the communes of Brussels, you have the right to vote in the municipal elections. So you should register. It's really easy. We can share the information on how to do it. You can do it with the It's Me app. It's really easy. I've done it as myself. And so, it's insane that only like a very small percentage of internationals actually know about it and use this tool to voice their democratic wishes in a way. So anyone who is EU citizen registered in any of the commune has the right to vote in the next municipal election. And by the way, also European elections in June.
It's fascinating because the opportunity seems to be huge. You have a city that has people from all over Europe coming with diverse experiences, because if you live in Brussels all your life, the garbage on your street may be the most normal thing for you to be there, to exist, and you're fine with it. But if you're coming from any other city in Europe, it's just something that shocks you and annoys you. And it's actually a breath of fresh air and inspiration that shouldn't be wasted. So it's a great initiative. But I'm wondering, have you actually assessed how big the impact of expats that are living in Brussels could be possibly if initiatives like this would mobilize more people? How many do you know? Do you have some data that you could share on this?
So I don't have the data handy with me, so I wouldn't know right now how many EU versus internationals, like for example non-EU citizens, live. I know there are huge communities from obviously Italy, also Poland, if I'm not wrong, but I don't have concrete data that I feel comfortable sharing like this right now. But for sure, if I'm not wrong, it's only like 17% of international having the right to vote in the municipal election that actually either registered or voted last time actually. And that's really, really, really little in percentage terms, if you think of it. So And I know that there is a very famous stat that goes around about how many Brussels citizens are actually born from either mixed parents or were not born in Brussels. So I think it's Brussels. I heard in one of the Restless Brussels events actually that Brussels is the second most cosmopolitan city in the world after Dubai, I think, and that's impressive. So I'm sure the impact is huge. Again, I don't have data, but I'm aware and convinced that there is a huge impact that international community can have, and it's, I think, our right and duty to engage in our city. And you know, with our team at Restless Brussels, we always say it's crazy that there are so many international people coming to Brussels to work in politics, but then they stay in this very pan-European, you know, meta level of politics, and they don't engage in their city. And it's such a pity, because these people are usually very talented, experienced people who I'm sure can bring so much to the city. And so enough of complaining about STIB, which I complain about a lot myself, but actually, STIB is as whoever lives in Brussels knows, it's the public transport network, but actually engage. So let's come together and see who wrote a successful petition and how we can talk to the STIB chief to raise our complaints, you know, things like that, basically. It's very practical. And that's how by the way, from a personal point of view, I really like this idea of working at European level for my job, but also engaging locally in my own city, coherently with my passion on mobilizing citizens and civil society for better changes, after all, so in the interest of everyone, we hope.
You said that you were already, that Restless Brussels as an initiative was already able to speak to some local stakeholders, politicians. Could you share a bit more about how that works, how that worked out? What was their reaction, approach to meeting with you?
Yes, absolutely. So it's mostly been our president, Tom Moylan, who had the idea to fund the organization, who's been the first sort of PR, if you like, of the organization, the one really engaging with politicians at the local level. And we have had a very positive response, especially for the time being, the Flemish community, the Greens, the Progressive. But of course, we are very open to engage with any politician on any political side. Actually, that's healthy. It's democracy, and the response has been surprisingly very positive in terms of eagerness from local politicians, to engage with the international community. I think there is an understanding that this is an untapped citizens group, if you like, of people that have rights, pay taxes, maybe not those in the institution, but all the rest, yes, we do. And it's fair that they have interest to engage. So I have to say that the response has been very positive, again, mostly from maybe green, left, progressive parties so far, mostly from the Flemish community, but we have all intention to expand that into the French community and other political parties as well, to ensure the diversity of perspectives and exchanges.
That's definitely something I would like to see. So good luck with that. And if for those who want to follow the initiative, restless.brussels is the website. And there's one more question I would like to ask you that refers to a topic I think is very important for everyone in the EU bubble and beyond, and that is the question about work-life balance. And when I say the word work-life balance, what comes to your mind? Do you have some tips that you could share with our audience? How do you make your life and work out well for you?
So I think this is a very interesting question, especially for those of us who left home and went to live in another country, firstly for a job, right? Which is a bit weird, because then it seems that all your life is around your job, because that's the reason why in the end you live, in my case, in Brussels. And that can be very tricky because actually I am someone who I have a big joy of life. I mean, I really love my private life beyond my work and passions. I have a lot of interest activities that I do. And so what I learned when I moved to Brussels and realized that it's the city where I'm gonna be for quite some time possibly, is that Brussels is not only the EU bubble, it's a city that can offer you so many activities, from, you know, hobbies that you may have, anything that you want to do. Also very accessible in terms of communities. For example, I speak French, so of course this gives me access to maybe even more activities. But frankly, as an Italian, there are so many things I can do in Italian here. I even did a creative writing course in Italian in Brussels. So the idea is to make peace with the fact that you may live here for work, but actually it's so important to realize that your life beyond work is here. And life is not only work, at least not for me. And Brussels is a place that can offer you a lot of that. So my work-life balance comes from the fact that, yes, Brussels is the city I went to because of my job, but that doesn't mean that all my life is only about my job. And obviously, it's also about organizing your time and making sure that you have a bit of me time regularly as much as possible, whether this is meditation or a walk or even going to the supermarket by yourself and doing your grocery shopping with your own time. You know, that could be a sort of meditation if you like. I do it, for example. And of course, being able to say no. Brussels is, again, I'm referring to Brussels because that's where I live, and I believe that work-life balance is very much also linked to the place you live. And frankly, it's a very tempting city. Everyone is very sociable. The whole thing about networking, I don't think it's only about work reasons. I think that people are generally curious in people. And so it's very tempting to say yes to so many invitations offered, but sometimes you need to say no and make time for yourself by yourself. At least that's what I try to do.
I think I'm picturing a couple of my friends who should be listening to this right now. So that's definitely very practical advice, to just say no to things that are not top priority. Alessandra, thank you very much for your time today, for all those interesting insights that you shared. To everyone who listened to us, who watched us, also thank you for being with us today. Alessandra, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been a pleasure, and I hope it's of value for the listeners and the watchers. So.
For sure. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christoph.